Excited to have Geoff here on the topic of the AI-driven leader, which coincidentally is part of the title of his just new book that he's released. Geoff is a #1 international bestseller. And I will say this, I'm going to make this offer right off the bat for any of their members on the call today that would like a copy of the book. Please reach out to me after this meeting, and I'd be happy to have a book sent to you. You can email me at chuck@COOforum.net, or just reply back to the email that Fiona will send out. But make sure you get that book in your hands. And so Geoff is also the host of the AI-driven Leader podcast and founder of AI Leadership. Let me see here. It says where he empowers leaders to harness AI, escape operational overwhelm, which I think we can oftentimes relate to, and then think strategically to help accelerate growth. Formerly, Geoff was the Chief Growth Officer at Jindal Steel and Power, where he helped their market cap grow from 750 million to over 12 billion in 4 years. That's pretty impressive. We could use some growth like that at the COO Forum, maybe this year. He's also co-founded the training and consulting company behind The One Thing that I think a lot of us know about, where he's coached and advised companies with annual revenues of 10 million to 60 billion. Geoff, I left off like probably another half hour worth of your bio. Hopefully you can fill us in a little bit more, but with that, I'm going to hand it off to you, Geoff. And again, thank you for being here at the COO Forum.
It's my pleasure, Chuck. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. This is going to be highly interactive, so I'm going to be having you go to the chat box constantly. If you have questions, ask them in the moment. I really want this to be interactive. And thanks so much for everybody who's already put in your business as well as how long you've been using it. I believe that your ability to think strategically is the difference between growing your business or going out of business. And this is something that Blockbuster learned the hard way. Back in the early 2000s, they were the king of movie rentals. Every week, you've got millions of people flocking to their local stores. It's driving $8.7 billion in annual revenue. And then this little company called Netflix comes along with this idea of DVD rentals by mail. And as Netflix gained traction, eventually Reed Hastings, who's running Netflix, approaches John Antioco, the CEO of Blockbuster, to acquire them for $50 million. That was just 0.6% of Blockbuster's total revenue. We know in one of the greatest strategic missteps of all time, Blockbuster declines. They were so confident in the defensibility of their business model. They thought that brick and mortar stores, customers, foot traffic, and penalizing people with late fees, it had worked up to this point. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Well, Netflix started to gain more traction. And eventually, Antioco began to realize the mistake and how he had discounted the significance of streaming. So he makes two strategic investments, $200 million to start Blockbuster Online, to go toe-to-toe with Netflix and hopefully just squash it like a bug, and another $200 million to cancel late fees to align customer interests with the business interests. But this creates a whole nother problem because Carl Icahn steps in as an activist investor, gobbles up the majority of the shares, takes over the board, and he is pushing for results yesterday. I am curious how many of you have investors or a board that is pushing for results yesterday? Put me in the chat box if that resonates with you. So Antioco is saying, we've got to be willing to take a step back in terms of profitability to maintain our advantage in the future. And Icahn is saying, I don't care. I want Blockbuster Online dead. I want late fees back. This creates a distraction at the executive level that misaligns the execution of the organization. And ultimately, that flywheel of Netflix spins so fast that by 2010, Blockbuster is dead. Now, out of curiosity, how many of you already knew this story? If so, give me a #1 in the chat box. And just to be clear, you have to make sure that it's not sending it to the meeting. Oh, yeah, meeting group chat. That's the one. How many of you did not know that story? Give me a 2. Let me tell you the side of the story most of you may not know. Guess why Hastings approached Antioco to sell Netflix? Why did he want to exit for 50 million? Because they were $50 million in the hole and they didn't think they could win.
There you go.
Can you believe that? So this is why I say that your ability to think strategically is the difference between growing your business or going out of business. And this is very relevant when it comes to AI, because AI is going to literally touch just about everything that we know about our business. Whatever you thought your competitive advantage was for the future, I'm going to challenge you to ask if it is still valid. I'm not going to tell you that it's been blown up, but I am going to challenge you to ask the question, what is the business that can put us out of business? And how can I be the one to build it first? And I will tell you that whatever your goals were for this year, they're likely too small, because AI has massively changed what's possible. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about why brilliant leaders fail when it comes to strategic thinking. We're going to talk about how tech changes jobs. This is super important for you because there's a lot of fear and uncertainty around this. So this will give you some clarity on how to lead forward with your organization. I'm going to give you the executive level of what AI is, how it works, and how you can start using it at a C level to get results. We're going to go through strategic use cases, real use cases of C-level leaders and how they use this. And then we'll talk about the path forward. My journey to strategic thinking actually started back in college. I went to UC Santa Barbara. My senior year, I did an internship with a technology company. And right before graduation, I sit down with the CEO and I ask him, what job should I get after school? He looks me straight in the eyes and he goes, Geoff, you're asking the wrong question. This is the first time in my life that I was introduced to the power of asking the right questions. This would define my career. He said, you should be asking, what are the skills I can master that are so valuable, they'll serve me no matter where I go? Then go find jobs that will help you develop those skills. This is the best career advice I've ever given. This thread has shaped my career. I'm going to suggest to you that AI is a skill worth mastering. I'm curious how many of you have thought, okay, I know AI is the future, but I'll get to it later or I'll delegate it to somebody on my team. If so, give me a 1. Give me a 2 if you said, nope, I'm prioritizing this, I'm figuring this out. No judgment, by the way. Okay, a much higher percentage of 2s than normal, just so you know. So high five to you. And if you put the 1 in the chat box, that's fine. Hopefully by the end of our session today, you will see it a little bit differently. So based on that advice, he told me to go into sales. I did. I went to work for Xerox, pretty quickly figured out nobody likes their copier rep. So I thought if I could sell medical devices and wear scrubs and try to get my wife to call me McDreamy, that would be awesome. It was, except she never called me McDreamy. So eventually I was called into entrepreneurship. And I moved to Austin to partner with a guy named Gary Keller. He started Keller Williams, largest real estate company in the world. He had written this book, The One Thing, very popular book. They wanted to turn it into a company, but Gary's One Thing was running Keller Williams. His co-author, Jay's One Thing, was writing books with Gary. They went looking for somebody whose one thing would be the one thing. That became me. So Gary said, I'm going to teach you how to think and act like a CEO. I'm going to give you my models and systems, and it's your job to take them into the world. So a lot of what I did was facilitating strategic offsites. So I took a Fortune 500 company from a 21-page business plan, literally, down to 1. I mastered the art and science of asking great questions to really smart leaders to get them to cut through the crap that distracts us and focus on the core priorities that are going to unlock new levels of growth. It became a superpower for me. By 2022, I had a chance to exit the business, had to do something for 2 years when I had a non-compete. I ended up going in-house with a client, Naveen Jindal, who owns Jindal Steel and Power. Global steel company, about 100,000 people. When I stepped in, the market cap was at 750 million. When I left, it was at 12 billion. I did that by focusing on 4 drivers: strategy, execution, people, and technology. Strategy is the competitive advantage you're building in the long term through the actions you take in the short term. Execution is about how do you execute a focused strategic plan for the year. People, The purpose of your people is to help you achieve your goals. Your goals and your plan change every year, but your job descriptions don't. You inherently have a lack of alignment every year. I wanted to realign the workforce. And then how do we harness technology to drive the whole thing? And that's where AI came in. It was December of 2022. I was facilitating an offsite in India. I had the C-suite from every company around the world in Delhi. And the morning of the offsite, a guy looks at me and says, "Have you heard of ChatGPT?" It had been out for less than 30 days. And I saw it for the first time. And when I saw what he did with his phone, I saw the next skill to master. And so trust me, there was a big part of me that said, I'm so busy. I'll get to this later. I'll delegate this to somebody else. But then I had my college mentor saying, focus on the skills you can master that are so valuable. They'll serve you no matter where you go. So I prioritized it. Now, honestly, pretty quickly, it felt like a waste of time. Because when I was using it like a really smart Google, where I was asking it questions and getting answers, or I was treating it like an assistant where I was delegating tasks to it. And I felt like this is not what's going to bring value to me at a C level. But that's when I came back to, okay, so what I must be asking myself the wrong question. What's the right question to be asking? And then I asked, okay, well, what matters at my role? And that's when I came back to strategic thinking. Your ability to think strategically is the difference between growing your business or going out of business. How might I harness AI to elevate my strategic thinking or help me make faster, smarter decisions? That unlocked something really important. Do you guys have the ability to spotlight me so that it's really big, or make me a co-host so I can do it? Because I'm going to draw stuff and I want to make sure it's big for everybody on the screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, cool.
Fiona,
So
yep.
here's people asking it, treating it like Google. Here's people treating it like an assistant. I decided to elevate my expectations for my relationship with this technology. And I started using it as a thought partner. I didn't go to it and ask questions. I went to it and gave it my toughest problems and asked it to act as an expert in that area to interview me and start asking me questions to help clarify my thinking, to challenge my biases and assumptions, to help me see non-obvious solutions that I should be considering. The moment I figured out how to communicate with AI that way, it was a game changer. And so I'm in Delhi every quarter. I'm at the chairman's house and I make the pitch. I say, this is the future. And he goes, I agree. I said, this is so important. I think we need to drive this through the whole company. He goes, I agree. I said, this is so important that you need to own this as chairman of the board. And he goes, I disagree. You do it. And so being a good entrepreneur, I committed, walked out and said, shoot, I don't feel like I have everything I need to be successful. And that's when I learned from Gary Keller, anytime you're hitting a ceiling of achievement in your life, you're just missing a person. Who can I get into a relationship with that, if they were in my world, would allow me to successfully drive this through our organization? And that is ultimately what led to me partnering with Google. I just started living at their headquarters pretty much in Delhi when I was out there, and they taught me everything. And
Geoff, hey, a question with Arel. Let's jump into the first question.
Please.
Hi, Geoff. How you doing? Thank you. So
Delightful.
you said,
How are you?
good. You said a key word, because I feel like I use it as a thought partner, but what you said now makes me feel like I use it as Google, like Google, right? So can you give an example between the difference of asking it a question and then
Sure.
basically putting something in there for us?
Here's one. I sat down with a group of CEOs and I asked, what are the biggest problems you're facing that if we could solve them would unlock a new level of growth? And a guy said, I run a manufacturing company. I leased all this equipment from a company in Japan. Things have shifted in the market. The debt's now killing us. We're going to go bankrupt if it doesn't get restructured. And I look at him, I go, okay, what have you done? And he goes, we've tried everything. And he lists 5 very specific strategies he had deployed and said, none of it has worked because this is a public company in Japan and the board is refusing to restructure the debt because they think they'll lose face in Japanese society. Can AI help? So treating it like Google would be going to it and saying, hey, I leased all this equipment from a company in Japan. Help me understand how I can get the board to say yes. It's going to give you answers. They're going to be mediocre at best. Here's what I did. Context, role, interview, task. We're going to get to this a little bit later. That's my framework or recipe for strategic thinking prompts. Context, everything I just told you, I literally typed in word for word as context. Role, your role is to act as an investment banker with deep expertise in restructuring debt. Interview me by asking me one question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain deeper context, so you can then accomplish the task of generating 5 non-obvious strategies I could deploy to get the board to restructure the debt. So instead of it generating average answers, it came back and it asked one question. Do you have relationships with any other influential executives in Japan that this board would respect? First off, what a question. I looked at him. He goes, I would have never asked that. And I'm thinking to myself, that's because you don't have 2,000 years of Japanese culture in your head, but AI does. And he goes, I actually do. And so we started feeding the names back, and it asked 2 more questions about how he had navigated Japanese society historically. It pulled all that context out of his head. And with that, it then came back and said, here's 5 non-obvious strategies. Number 1, it labeled the Saving Face Consortium. It said, you have enough relationships with the right people. Approach them to acquire the debt and give them really favorable terms. Your debt will get restructured. The board will save face. I look at him and he is noticeably holding back tears. His whole body language is shifting. He looks at the other people in the room and goes, guys, I haven't slept in 90 days. I have literally been making peace with the fact that we are going out of business. And in less than 10 minutes, I got hope. We texted a few months later and he said, the ball's moving. I actually think this is going to get done. You see the difference now?
Yes, thank you.
A new one for me. I get my financial statements on a monthly basis. I pull my financials into AI. Context, role, interview, task. Context, here's my financial statements for the past month. Your role is to act as a strategic CFO, adept at looking at financial statements as a scoreboard to give CEOs insights about the business that they may not be aware of. Interview me by asking 1 question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain more context. And then I want you to tell me the top 5 non-obvious insights I should know about my business as a CEO that I may not know about my business. I had a guy that was wanting to join. I have an executive network called The Collective. He wanted to join it. We've got an offsite at the end of January. He said, I can't make it. The board just mandated that I cut $3 million from operating expenses. I got to block myself for like the next 30 to 45 days. And I asked him, have you tried AI for that? He goes, no. And I literally gave him that prompt. He texted me 5 minutes later and said, holy crap. There you go. Let's pause. What have you learned so far? Put your answer in the chat box. What have you learned so far? Yeah, there are absolutely different levels. A new way to write prompts. Yes. How to use AI as a thought partner. Stephen, it's not that you're not writing them correctly. You're just seeing a different level to play at. Good framework for better leveraging. Yes. What are the 4 issues? Context, role, interview, task. I've got a slide on it. We'll hit it in a little bit. Okay, very good. So let's go back to our regularly scheduled programming. So ultimately, this is what led me to write the book. I felt a massive void in the market. I literally interviewed over 200 execs for the book. 100% said it was the future and that they would adopt it, but less than 5% had done anything. And my realization was, you're busy. You know you need to do something, but nobody has shown you where to start. And so that became my focus. I specifically focus on C-level and making it real and applicable for you. And this is where my suggestion to you is going to be, You can use it as a Google or as an assistant, but the ROI on that's very low versus raising your standards, start treating it as a thought partner. That ROI is exponential. So let's talk about why we fail when it comes to strategic thinking. At a high level, we all have too much to do and not enough time. We don't really have the easiest access to all our data. It used to be that we didn't have enough. Now there's so much, but it's not centralized. And so it's hard to access it and use it to make better decisions. We all have biases and assumptions that if we do not challenge them, cause us to run in the wrong direction. And a lot of us face that pressure to do more with less and deliver results yesterday. These 4 things kill strategic thought. But if you start to use AI as a thought partner, it actually can become very, very, very powerful. But here's the thing. I genuinely believe AI can accelerate you hitting your goals, or it can flat out distract you from it. The difference is you, and if you are thinking strategy first, technology second. I don't actually care about AI. I care about you hitting your goals. AI is a tool that can help you. So you've got to instead, I'm not here to say every single one of you needs to start using AI every day for everything you do, because that's wrong. I am saying that you should use it when it matters and when it's the right tool. So let's talk about the tech. How many of you feel like there is fear or concern across the workforce around job displacement? If so, put a me in the chat box. Okay, super normal. I wanted to have some data behind this, so I literally went back and studied every major technological disruption from printing press, steam engine, assembly line, electricity, internet, and I looked for the trends. Here's what I learned. Your job is nothing more than skills you apply and processes you follow. In every single technological disruption, the tech changed the skills that were valued and the processes that were followed. In every shift, some jobs were lost, meaning the skills that they applied and the processes that they followed became outdated. Those people got other jobs. It required them to learn new skills and follow new processes. And in fact, the employment overall rose. I believe the same thing will happen here. In the short term, will there be job displacement? Yes. Will there be more long-term growth? I do believe that as well. In fact, 6 out of 10 jobs that exist today didn't even exist in 1940. So here's what this means for you as a COO. This is about mindset. You look at your workforce, and I'm segmenting them into 2 groups. Who are the people that have a growth mindset, and who are the people that have the fixed? Growth mindset sees change and sees opportunity. Fixed mindset sees change and sees threat. They're not bad people. It's just how they think. That's fine. Your job as a leader is to meet them where they're at. For those that are growth minded, I'm having the conversation of, I agree. This is a huge opportunity. What do you believe are the skills that you can acquire? Or what do you believe the processes are that we can design that will allow us to play at a higher level? You engage them in their creative thinking to design the future of work. Huge opportunity. Those that have the fixed mindset, it's about empathizing with them. Empathetic strength, but also helping them understand that, hey, some of the skills you apply today, you're right. You're not going to be applying maybe tomorrow or a year from now. But how can you grow? Evolution is woven into our DNA. It's part of us, yet we resist it. Here's where, if we want to make this really real, I believe, and you tell me if you agree, give me a 1 if you agree, give me a 2 if you don't, that the majority of our people's time is spent in 3 things: email, meetings, and doing the tasks on their to-do list. Give me a 1 if you agree, give me a 2 if you disagree. Now tell me, the stuff that's on their to-do list, is it the 20% priorities that drive 80% of our results? Or is it all the other 80% stuff that only drives 20%? Give me 20% or 80% in the chat box. It's the 80. So what does that mean? That means the majority of what we pay our people to do is the stuff that does not matter most. To be direct. And it's true. So here's where I think the real opportunity is, and this is what gets me so excited, is when the opportunity that I see with the right leadership, AI will enhance you. It will not replace you, because we have an opportunity to harness the strengths of every person, focus it on the priorities of their role in alignment with the company goals, and then supercharge them with AI. I'm curious, how many of you, if I said, give me the top 3 strengths that you have, that if you were not harnessing them, we would not be maximizing your potential? How many of you could put those 3 things in the chat box right now without hesitation? Give me a 1 if yes, give me a 2 if no. If you have to think, it's a 2. All leadership begins with self-leadership. We have an opportunity to rediscover who we are and what makes us us. I have gone on this journey and I am so clear. My top 3 things are communication, connection, and creation. Communication, me doing what I'm doing right now. If you think I'm decent at this, it's a superpower of mine. Connection, I'm a super connector. I'm great at getting in a relationship with, I can connect people, ideas, and opportunities. I'm a super connector. And creation, I am great as an inventor and a visionary. So like writing the book and coming at it from this angle, this is me and my superpower. I am so clear that those 3 things are my unique ability that I'm asking, great, how do I build a fortress around those things? And how do I align those strengths with the 20% priorities that I have as a founder and CEO? How do I make sure that those priorities are aligned with our strategic plan for this year? And now how do I use AI to enhance me? Because it can never replace me. That's what it means to be an AI-driven leader. Now, how many of you, when I share that, you get a little excited? You're like, whoop, whoop, that sounds great. Give me a 1 or a me in the chat box. Yeah, George. Right. So what's the difference that'll make the difference? What do you think it is? What are your thoughts? What's the difference going to make the difference? It's you. It's your leadership. So, which is why, for me, the AI-driven leader is not as much an AI book as it is a leadership book, which is why I am suggesting to you that you saying, I'm going to delegate this or I'm going to get to this later, is actually you abdicating your responsibility as a leader in an AI-driven future. You must prioritize this. I don't need you to be the chief AI officer of the company. Don't need that. I do need you to have foundational competence so that you can understand what this technology is, how it works, how it impacts things, so it can enhance you, and then you can start to lead your team. Sound good? Hooray. All right. Fundamentally, you have to redefine your relationship. You are the thought leader. AI is your thought partner. I actually think this is one of the biggest risks with AI is people abdicating their role as the thought leader. I see it all the time. People ask ChatGPT to write an email or content and they copy and paste it without any editorial oversight. They flipped the roles. They made AI the thought leader. You are in the driver's seat. It is your workhorse, but at the end of the day, this is your work. You got to ask, do I agree with this? Is this in the right voice? How do I know that it's true? Because AI makes things up. Yeah, one of your pet peeves. I see that. Me too. So let's talk about the tech and how it works. So at a high level, AI is a machine or a computer that can do stuff we can do as humans. That's all you need to know. There are 3 ways it can bring value. Put it in the hands of your people, make them more productive, put it into your operations, make them more efficient, or put it in your products and services and make them more valuable. The mistake I see companies making so far is that they are racing to shove this into their product or to push it into operations before the leaders making the call understand what the technology is. And I see studies coming out saying, oh, millions of dollars have been invested and there's no ROI. Yeah. You tried to run before you walked or even crawled. My strong suggestion is you start with people. Guess which people I'm going to suggest you start with? Put your answer in the chat box. That's right, James. You, my friend. That's right. When we did research and we developed a maturity matrix of the 5 levels of maturity for an AI-driven organization. Level 1 is all about building foundational competence across key leaders. That's it. Level 2 is when you start expanding to early adopters. Level 3 is you've now worked the kinks out. Now we're strategically driving it through the company. Level 4 is when you're optimizing the existing state. And level 5 is when you're going for full-blown AI-driven transformation. But it starts with you and key leaders having some competence around this. This is a cool slide. Here's what your journey is going to look like. And I will be asking you where you are on this curve once I get through it. Every one of us starts at the starting point where we've heard of AI, haven't done much, but then you have that light bulb moment where you see AI turn a relatable moment into a remarkable experience. You get excited. You're like, oh, I want to try this. You try to use it and you fall off the cliff and you have the reality check because it doesn't work and you feel like it's a waste of time. The issue is not AI, it's your communication with AI. How many of you are married or have ever been in a romantic relationship ever? Put me in the chat box. Very good. Tell me, how important is communication in your relationship with a significant other? Key, right? It's the same thing with AI, folks. If it's not working, I want you to look in the mirror first and ask, have I clearly communicated with AI? This is going to raise your communication with humans once you learn how to prompt. And once you learn how to talk to it, all of a sudden, Steven, I see you got a question.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt your thought, but that just got me thinking. My understanding is AI learns about you as you interact with it.
100%.
So at what point have I been sloppy enough in the past that I need to clear that history or start from scratch with that, the AI interactions going forward? I mean, does that make any sense? Is that not a real concern?
Not a real concern, honestly. If you start to feel it's generating things that you think are inaccurate, are you using ChatGPT specifically?
Just that right now, yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
then you can actually go into
your.
your settings and look at memory and you can start to delete stuff.
Okay.
But honestly, it doesn't make that big of a difference.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, good. So you start learning to communicate with it. All of a sudden, when you step up to the plate, you swing the bat and you feel like you're building momentum. It works. And so your confidence grows and you start using it in other use cases and it works and you feel like you're accelerating progress. And eventually you get to this point where it is a true co-pilot in what you do and you're just expanding what's possible. So put which stage you are in right now. You can put starting point, light bulb, reality check, building momentum, accelerating progress, expanding what's possible. I want to know where you're at. Okay, so a lot of starting points in building momentums, few reality checks. Excellent. You're in the right place, folks. Doesn't matter. Here's what's cool. In the next 30 days, every single one of you can be at accelerating progress. I'll show you how.
Geoff, quick question from Aurel. Her question, if you don't mind, is there a resource that a business owner can access to determine how AI can help change or support their business or industry, like a psychotherapist asking for a friend?
Friend, wink, wink, nod, nod. Let's ask that at the end. The answer is yes. Yeah. Of all the slides I show you, this is the one I want you to take a picture of. So literally get your phone out and take a picture of this. And I want you, if you have an iPhone, to click that little heart icon and save it to favorites. This will be muy importante in terms of you and you taking this forward, moving forward. Simplifying things is one of my superpowers. So when I think about prompt engineering, I think of it like cooking. We all understand that when we cook for our family, you open up the fridge, you pull a bunch of ingredients out. The better quality the ingredient, the better tasting the food. And you don't use everything that's in your fridge. And you don't use I don't use the same amount of garlic as I do onions, as I do chicken. Different quantities. Same thing here. So these are all the ingredients that you can consider. I'm going to give you the top 4 for strategic thinking. Context, role, interview, task. In that order. If you can just remember this, write these down, I will have you leapfrog 99.999% of people using AI today, just with this structure. Context. You have to give it lots of context about the situation. While it has been trained on incredible amounts of data, it is not you, and it does not know your business the way that you do. Give it lots. You are not limited like a Google window. Role or persona. Who do you want it to become? Let me ask you a question. How many books do you think you've read in your lifetime? Put the answer in the chat box. 300, 200, hundreds, over 1,000. Excellent. What percent of that collective knowledge can you recall and apply right now? Put the percentage in the chat box. 2%, 1%, 0.1%, right? Practically none. So we have been wildly successful on our ability to recall the minority of what we have learned, which is insignificant compared to the knowledge of the world. Now let's use these AI models. They have been trained on 200 million books worth of data. Guess what percent it can recall? Put it in the chat box. 100%. Guess how long it takes it to comb through 200 million books for the relevant information about your specific request? Under a second. Are you getting this now? As the thought leader with your direction, but with AI as your thought partner, you tap into this processing powerhouse that can focus data on your use case like a laser. So when I say you're an investment banker with deep expertise in restructuring debt, or a strategic CFO, adept at looking at financial statements as a scoreboard and telling CEOs the non-obvious insights they should know about their business, I'm going from 200 million books down to a tightly curated data set that I focus on my use case. I don't have to be a chief legal officer. I can ask AI to be one. I don't have to be a marketing expert. I can ask AI to be one. I don't have to be a change management expert. I can ask AI to be one. You get to harness intelligence and expertise when you assign a role. Then you supercharge it by telling that expert to interview you. Now, here's the key. You got to tell it to ask one question at a time. Otherwise, it'll ask you many at once, and I give it a limit. 3 questions if I want fast, 4 questions if I want it to go a little deeper, 5 if I want it to go exhaustive. Very rarely, sometimes I let it go unlimited. But as thought leader, at some point I cut off. I go, you know enough, deliver the results. Like the 5 whys. That's right. And then finally, so you gave it context, you assigned a role, you asked it to interview, all so that it can accomplish a task. What do you want it to do? Some of my most common tasks are generate 5 non-obvious strategies. That word non-obvious is incredibly important, by the way, because if you don't, it'll just reflect back what you already know. But if you say non-obvious or creative or outside the box, it will do just that. Another one is give me feedback on what you like about my approach, what you don't like about my approach, and the top changes you would recommend I make to my approach. Those are 2 ones that are pretty universal if you're using it for strategic thinking. If it's for decision making, I'll say, tell me the pros and cons of each option, and then make a suggestion on what I should do and why. So those are some examples of tasks. So let's talk about use cases. At a high level, for you as a COO, I see really 5 use cases. They're not equally impactful. Strategic thinking and decision-making, I think, are 2 of the most important ones you can do at a C-level. There's stuff on a weekly basis that you have to think through that requires real processing power on your brain. I'm telling you, in those moments, don't do it alone. Engage your thought partner. It could be anything from, real use case, facilitated a strategic offsite for a company, and they did 150 million in revenue last year, but they're venture backed and they missed. And the board was less than pleased and said, you got to deliver 30% top line growth this year. That's a big number. And so as we worked our way through the strategic plan, one of the things they were going to have to do is they were going to have to come up with $20 million in net new revenue from products that don't even exist yet. And the team got to work. They got their sticky notes out there, coming up with their ideas. And when we added it all up, it added up to 12 million, which really means it's more like 6, because how often do plans go according to plan? Put your answer in the chat box. How often do your plans go according to plan? In all caps, never. So at that point, we felt like we were at a stalemate. This is when I pulled up AI. Context, role, interview, task. Context. Here is the strategic plan we've developed so far. This is our historical product set. Here's the competitive landscape. Here's what we've currently thought of. We can only come up with 12 million, which really means we got 6, but we got to come up with 20 million. You are an aggressive, growth-minded board member who understands our business and our industry deeply. Interview me by asking 1 question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context. Then I want you to generate 10 non-obvious product solutions or combinations we could launch that would generate $20 million in recognized revenue in the next 12 months, conservatively. It literally conducted an interview, and then it spat back answers that were awesome. And by the time we were done with that exercise, the team looked and they were like, okay, this just went from crazy to possible. It's tough to read the label when you're inside the box. That's what I mean by using it for strategic thinking. How many of you are like, oh my gosh, I didn't know AI could do this? If so, put me in the chat box. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's strategic thinking, decision making. I told you any decision you have to make, give it the various situations or things you're considering, have it interview you as a certain type of expert, and then give you the pros and cons of each option and make a suggestion on what you should do and why. Very powerful. Content creation. Give me examples of types of content that you have to create in your role. Put your answer in the chat box. Okay, communication to staff, marketing, process, policy. Excellent. Process and procedure, handbook, every single thing you just wrote down, it can help you do. Context, role, interview, task. Context, we've got to create a process and procedure for this exact thing. Here's what's been happening behind the scenes. You are an expert COO who specializes in creating processes and procedures. I want you to interview me by asking 1 question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context about the situation. And then I want you to generate a draft of the policy and procedure that I could launch to the team this week. It will literally conduct an interview and give you the draft. Now, this is when you got to remember you're the thought leader. AI is your thought partner. When it gives it to you, your job is not to copy and paste. Your job is to ask, do I agree? What do I like about this? What do I not like about this? And whatever you're thinking, type back to AI and go back and forth. So let me give you real use cases. It's kind of fun. So the book. I wrote every word in the book is mine, and I used AI to write every word. I had it interview me as a New York Times bestselling ghostwriter to understand the value proposition and then generate one. It did it. It was 80% right. I took it offline and polished it. I then said, great, now turn this into a table of contents. It generated it. It was 100% wrong. But because I could see what was wrong, it was so clear to see what was right. That saved me so much time because the majority of your work in content creation is getting to a draft. This can get you to a draft in seconds. I took the table of contents, hopped online with 20 CEOs, and just talked for 2 hours with the table of contents as my guide, had my AI note taker taking notes, meaning every word was transcribed. I took the transcript, went back to ChatGPT, said, you're a New York Times bestselling author. This is my ideal reader. Here's the value proposition of the book. Here's the table of contents. Here's a transcript of me talking about the content for the book for 2 hours. Here's a structure I want every chapter to adhere to that my coach gave me. Generate a chapter outline for every chapter. It did 6 months of work in 10 minutes. Then I looked at it and said, great, now let me be not the player of the instrument. Let me be the conductor. I waved my wand and said, now you're my ideal reader. You're a CEO of a company with $50 million in revenue. You're innovative, ambitious, growth-minded, collaborative. You know AI is the future. You don't know where to start. You think you're falling behind. And oh, by the way, you're sick and tired of charismatic tech leaders promising tech will change everything, only to overpromise and underdeliver. That's literally what I typed in. As that person, tell me what you like, don't like, and the top changes I would have to make to every chapter so that you would like it. It suggests that. Now you're a New York Times bestselling author, make those changes. Now you're a best-selling editor, smooth this out. And then I sent it to a real editor who moved everything around, and then I rewrote every word. I went start to finish in 5 months when it takes an average author 2 to 5 years. Are you getting this when it comes to content creation? Woo! Who's excited? Come on now. That's pretty cool. All right. Let's talk about idea generation. 3 ways you can have it help here. One is, hey, I need 5 options for X. It'll generate it. Another is non-obvious solutions. This is my favorite one. Here's the situation. Here's the role I want you to play. Interview me by asking 1 question at a time. And then I want you to generate 5 non-obvious ideas that I haven't considered that I should be considering. Very, very, very good. And another one is to go from a big list to a short list. Studies have shown that the best decisions come when you have the most number of options on the table. And we're not talking about like 2 to 5 options. We're talking like 100. So you could say, here's the situation around a decision I'm making. Here's the 3 options I see. I want you to generate 50 other options I'm not even considering. Great. Now that we've done this, conduct an interview of me. And then I want you to tell me the top 3 choices I should be thinking about, stack them in order of priority, and tell me why you're making that suggestion. And it'll shorten the list for you. And then finally, analysis. Analysis of data, like I already told you how I use it for my P&L. Analysis of content. You can have it act as your board member. You can have it act as your ideal customer. You can have it act as an internal employee for employee communication, where you literally describe the person and have them give you feedback on what they like about it, don't like about it, and the top changes. Here's a real example. I've been advising a company for a few years. They sell their products in Whole Foods. They got a call from corporate and they said, Jason Buchel, our CEO, wants to meet with you to discuss expanding our partnership and giving you more shelf space. If you sell products in Whole Foods, that's like Santa calling and saying, I'm coming to town to hang out with you. So the exec team takes 2 weeks to put together a tight 2-page PDF. And the CEO brings it to me the day before the meeting and says, can AI help? And I go, I think so. How many of you have heard of Perplexity? If so, put me in the chat box. If not, put no. Oh, baby. Okay. Oh, start calling me Santa. Here we go. Perplexity. Here we go. Okay, so Perplexity is another AI tool, just like ChatGPT. Perplexity.ai. Folks, you should never use Google again. I want you to research the top things Jason Buchel has publicly said are a priority for Whole Foods that would warrant expanding a partnership with a vendor and giving them more shelf space. Cite all sources. Don't make anything up. Spelling doesn't matter, by the way. It's just predicting the next word. Don't even worry about it. So here's what's cool about Perplexity. It's actually showing me the real websites it searched. And when it tells me commitment to high product standards, it's more than doubled its list of banned foods from over 260. And it gives a little number right here. If I click that, it's going to launch the actual article that it pulled it from. And I get to ask, is this a credible source? And is that actually in here? So like it said 260. I'm going to do a quick search for 260. Boom. Fact. That's how I know if AI made something up or not. So for research, this is super powerful. So I literally did this We identified the top things that Jason was looking for. I validated all of them. I went to ChatGPT, pulled in the PDF. How many of you know how to do this? How many of you know how to attach a document to AI? Give me a 1 if yes, give me a 2 if no. Okay. Here's how you attach a document to AI. Here's my book. You click it, you drag it, and you dropped it. Oh, it doesn't like that file type. Get a different one. Click, drag, drop. Okay, it's being funky today. You get the point. You click, you drag, you drop. That's how you attach. So I drug in the PDF, dropped it, and said, "You're Jason Buchel. You're the CEO of Whole Foods. We are meeting with you to discuss expanding our partnership with you. Here's the 6 things that you care about that would warrant expanding the partnership with a vendor. I want you to give me feedback as Jason on what you like about our deck, what you don't like about our deck, and the top changes we need to make to our deck so that you would give us more shelf space." We hit enter. In 2 seconds, it had read everything on the deck, cross-referenced it with the 6 things, and said, "I care about fair trade and sustainability. These are strengths of your brand. They're nowhere to be found on the deck. Here's exactly what you should say, and here's where you should place it." How many of you are going, let me give you one more. Another company, we've been working toward an exit, but they have a hostile board. How many of you have a board? If so, put me. Or how many of you just have a really demanding boss? So they have a hostile board. The CEO gets a call that says, from the chairman, "You got 6 months to turn this around or you're all gone." And he and I are sitting down. He goes, "Geoff, I don't even know what to do." And I said, "I got an idea." So we called a meeting, pulled the executive team on Zoom. I pulled up ChatGPT and turned it into an HR professional with deep expertise in creating personality profiles. I had to interview the executive team about one board member. And it could ask as many questions as it wanted until it understood them on a deep level. And then it had to generate a personality profile. It did it. And the moment it generated the profile, I said, "You're the thought leader. What do you agree with? What do you not agree with? Polish it." And so they did. It was like 80% right. We then repeated that for every board member. I then created a custom AI model right there on the spot, pulled in the personality profiles of every director, and said, "You are our AI board. We are going to give you our deck in advance of the meeting. Your job is to simulate how the board will react and tell us where the landmines are that are going to blow up in our face and cause all the bloodshed." To test it, we took a deck from a past meeting. We already know what happened. We pulled it in and said, "Give us your feedback." And it immediately goes on slide 8. Susan's going to get distracted by the granularity of the details on the slide. This is going to lead to a 30-minute detour that's going to derail your whole agenda. Instead of all the details, just narrow it to these 3 things because that's what she cares about most. And I look at the CEO and he goes, "That's exactly what happened." But wait, there's more. Now for future meetings, one director is always virtual. With their permission, we have our AI note taker taking notes, meaning every word is transcribed. We pull the transcript and give it back to the AI board and say, "Compare what you simulated to reality and improve the personality profiles of every board member so you could have simulated reality." It only took 2 meetings for the board to say, "These are the best meetings we've ever had and the best deck we've ever seen." It literally saved their jobs. So when I talk about using AI to help with analysis, whether it be a CSV file, your financial statements, content, whether it be board communication, board deck, investor relations, marketing, have it act as the person that's going to receive it and give you the feedback. How many of you know about voice mode? Give me a 1 if yes, give me a 2 if no. Okay. It's going to be fun. Okay, here we go. So if you are using ChatGPT specifically, see this little black button right here? You click that, and wait for it to turn into a blue circle. Hey there, I've got an upcoming board meeting. I want you to act as my board. And what are the top things that are concerning you when you consider the state of our business?
Sure, I'll act as your board. From my perspective, the top concerns would be 1.
Nope, you don't get to listen to my actual concerns. So you can actually talk to it and it can talk back. So here's how this matters in this case. I had a sales pitch with a big company. I fed it the proposal and then told it on the computer, I'm typing all this. I wanted it to act as the executive and their chief of staff. I described both in vivid detail. And I said, I'm going to actually pitch the proposal to them. And I want them to interact with me. And I want them to actually give objections. Don't be nice to me. Make this like the toughest sales pitch of my life so that the real one's much easier. And when I say the words all done, I want you to tell me what you liked about my pitch, didn't like about my pitch, and the top changes I should make to my pitch. Confirm you understand. Confirm I understand. Waiting for your instructions. I went from desktop mode, opened the same thread on my phone, put on audio mode, and literally said, all right, thanks so much for the time today. Here's what we're going to be covering. And I started going through the pitch. And it starts interrupting me and giving objections. And I'm handling them. And we're doing this for like 10 to 15 minutes. And I said, all done. And it was great. Here's what I liked about your presentation. Here's what I didn't like about your presentation. And here's the top changes. I stopped voice mode, went back to my computer, clicked refresh, and it was all there. One of the things it called out was that there was no ROI justified. And I'm going, how did I miss that? And that's when I remembered, tough to read the label when you're inside the box. And so, but I went, uh-oh, I don't know what the ROI is. So I went to AI and said, I don't know. Give me some creative solutions. And it said, well, how about you turn the tables on the executive and make them defend the investment? So I created a slide that said, defend the investment. And when we got to that stage, I said, I can tell you're excited. Who are you going to have to sell this to? And he said, the CFO. I said, okay, I'm your CFO. We're going to role play now. You just pitched me. My answer is no. Now you have to defend the investment and tell me why I should say yes. And he goes off on all the reasons why my AI note taker, with his permission, is taking notes. I pulled the transcript, put it back into the same thread and said, go to the section of the transcript where he defended the investment and use that to create a content for a tight slide we would give to a budget conscious CFO that would get him to say yes. And it literally generated the content, put it on the slide, sent, deal got done. Ray asked a question, how secure is giving AI your company financials and other data? The answer is it depends. If you are using, how many of you are using, put free or paid? Are you using a free version of AI or a paid version of AI? Okay, for those of you that are free, if the product is free, the product is not the product, you are the product. They are literally training on everything you put in there. Now, there are 3 models today that you can get to not train on your data. This is important. You want a model that does not train on your data. ChatGPT, Copilot, and Claude. ChatGPT, if you are paying $20 a month, it is still training on your data. But you can go into the settings and click a button to get it to stop. If you pay $30 a month for ChatGPT Teams, which is different than Microsoft Teams, it automatically establishes an instance for your company where it claims it does not train on your data. Copilot, if you are a Microsoft shop and you have a certain level of license, you can get Copilot will not train on your data. Anthropic, Claude, their terms of service state that they don't train on any of your data by default. For many companies, yeah, well, Diana, they do claim. Now, that's the question of how much do you trust them and what's to stop them from changing their terms of service. This is where you have to, and that's okay, Diana, but this is where, for most companies, you have to ask, what's the risk reward? And maybe you're not pulling financial statements in if you're really worried about it. For me, like, I'm just not that worried about it. Even if my financial statements leaked, that's not a huge threat to my business compared to the upside of getting the insights on my financial statement. So I have made a calculated risk reward analysis there. Some companies, the bigger companies, this is not good enough. And this is where they have, like, if you're a Microsoft shop and you run on Azure, you can pipe one of these large language models into your own instance that you control the security of, and it never leaves the four walls of your instance. And then you can also have all your internal documents in there that it has this baseline context, and you just have a user interface. That's more of an enterprise solution. Some companies on this call might be ready for that. Most aren't. But this is where, again, the companies that are just said, you can't use this, I don't think they fully understand what the technology is. And there are absolutely ways to anonymize your data so that if you put it in it, you're in better standing. Is that helpful? Okay. Any other questions on this before we move forward? Oh. Who's having fun? If you're having fun, put me in the chat box. Me. Okay. Let's talk about how you build an AI-driven organization. Because I've given you lots of stories. I gave you the ingredients around it and context, role, interview, task. Let's talk about how you do something with it. This is the flywheel. Everything starts with the questions you ask yourself. Right now, most people are still asking themselves, how can I do this? I'm going to ask you to make one simple shift. I literally want you today, like right after this, I want you to get a sticky note and a Sharpie. And write, how can AI help me do this? I want you to take that sticky note and I want you to put it on your computer or put it on your desk. Literally, if you can only do one thing after this session, I want you to take a sticky note with that question and I want you to put it on your desk. Here's why. You will automatically see it every day, which when you see it, it will create awareness of a situation. Well, what am I even doing right now? I'm reviewing a mutual NDA. How can AI help me do this? You're going to write the prompt, context, role, interview, task. Context, I'm looking at a MNDA for another company. You're a great legal expert with expertise in MNDAs. Interview me asking one question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain some more context, and then tell me the top things I should be concerned about and write suggested language for it. Literally, that's a prompt, and that's a good one. If you use good communication ingredients, you're going to get a good result. That is just going to make you want to ask the question again. You do this, folks, once a day, every day for the next 30 days. You will be at accelerating progress. Guaranteed. Once a day, every day for the next 30 days. In the middle of doing something, ask, how can AI help me do this? And write the prompt. Your goal is not to get a win every time. The best baseball players in history strike out 6 out of 10 times. You will not strike out that many times. When you do, not if, when. When it does not work, look at your communication. And that's why I wanted you to have that slide of the communication ingredients saved to your favorites. Look at them. Did I give it sufficient context? Did I assign a great role? Did I ask it to interview me? Did I describe the task? Did I give limits? Did I add structure? All these different things, you will blast all the way through. So let's talk why start now. How many of you, out of curiosity, I would love your feedback. How many of you, give me a 1 if this is like high figuring out AI in your company, priority, give me a 1 if it is high priority, it's on the strategic plan, no ifs, no ands, no buts, we're moving the ball this year. Give me a 2 if it's like, we're thinking about it, we're not quite sure. Give me a 3 if it's like not on the radar. No judgment, by the way, I just want to know where people are at. Here's why I believe you need to start now. Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, said this. Here's what he meant. Every part of your business is going to be touched by this, is going to change. As a C-level executive, if I hear that within 5 years, everything I know about my business is going to change, when would I want to start acquiring the knowledge? And oh, by the way, he said this almost a year ago. He also said this. You tell me, is he credible? I think so. So I am telling you, you can do whatever you want. You may choose to not do anything right now, but here's the risk. Think of a hockey stick growth curve. It's flat for a long time until it's not flat anymore. I think we're in a unique window in time where, depending on your industry, you got 1 to 3 years, because there are people that are already starting in your industry. Guaranteed. It's going to take 1 to 3 years for you to see it. But once you see it, it's too late. Sitting on the sidelines and not taking action has real consequences here. So this is where I would strongly encourage you to look at your strategic plan and ask the question, is this clearly called out on how we are going to move the ball this year? If not, I'm going to strongly suggest that you have some internal conversations about this. At a high level, here's how we help companies. I believe if you try to navigate this alone, you're going to lose. Your one thing is not being an AI expert. Mine is. The tech is also changing every second, and you're competing with people with more money. So for me, I never wanted to be the guy with all the answers. I wanted to be the guy with the right questions. And so my whole thing is to pull together talented C-level executives who are committed to driving this in their companies. And we come together in an executive network called The Collective, where our job is we're all driving this in our companies. And my team is providing lots of training and resources that you're driving. But then we come together and we are centralizing our knowledge on how we're using it in a non-proprietary fashion. Proprietary stuff stays proprietary. But that way we get to collaborate, and my team takes all that knowledge and creates roadmaps and playbooks and tools and systems and gives it right back to you. That way you learn more in a year than you could in a lifetime. So if that is of interest to you, you are welcome to scan the QR code. My email is on there. It's on my website, AI Leadership. We got 2 companies in the COO Forum in this. Jill is in this, and also Shanaz had her from Zen Business, has her CIO in this. So a lot of them are CEOs, a lot of them are COOs, a lot of them are CIOs, but the whole idea is that we're going to accomplish a lot more by collaborating together. Beautiful. What questions do we have?
I have 2 questions.
Please.
At the beginning, you were talking, one of your slides, where you were talking about people's roles and adapting, and I heard that a little bit because the responsibility maps and realizing that I need to use AI to help generate and revise that. But did I hear correctly that the people's roles, you have to keep on adapting them, right? You said something around that.
Yeah. Kat, what's the purpose of a job description? Or what is a job description?
Well, that's what I'm trying to be. A job description is what you use to hire somebody. And I hate that's when I ask for what are the people's roles and responsibilities. I don't want a job description. I want, what are they responsible for?
Yep. Yeah, I'm giving it to everybody. Put in the chat box. What goes on a job description? Responsibilities and competencies. Okay. Duties, roles and responsibilities to do your job. I agree with all that. Here's the shift. When I look at most job descriptions, it tries to cover everything the person will need to do for their role. I think that's backwards, because everything does not matter equally. I focus on the 20% that drives 80% of the results. Gary Keller taught me to view a job description as the 2 to 3 things somebody has to do exceptionally well, otherwise they'd be fired. That is a different lens of a JD. So when I look at this is what I was saying about that, Kat. You've got a strategic plan for the company. You've got a goal and you've got all the things that matter at a company level. That might even break down to a division or a departmental strategic plan that is then supported by an org chart. Now, these people have historically done things, and their job description was written at the time the business was hiring, which was for a historical strategic plan that is no longer relevant. So if you're updating your plan every year and your divisional plans, I'm looking at the people who support the plan and ask the question, are these showing up in the right places? Are your people rowing in the right direction, or are they all over the place? And more often than not, I find that they're all over the place. That's what I meant. And yes, AI would be phenomenal at that. Here's our strategic plan. Here's my job description. Tell me where you see alignment and tell me where you see a lack of alignment, and give me the top suggestions you would make for me to tweak my job description so I was 100% in alignment with the business plan. Booyah!
Thank you.
My pleasure.
One more question is, because I do have it on my strategic plan. We want to increase our internal efficiency for the 2025. But when I say AI and when people talk about AI, they always think in terms of tools. But when I'm listening to you right now, it's a matter about even we can be doing so much better as leaders just harnessing the chat GDPs of the variation. We don't have to have, because I don't want to run a spend. Oh, I have to have this tool to do this and this tool to do this, and I need this app, and tens of thousands of dollars later.
A CHRO of a really big company said to me once, a fool with a tool is still a fool. You can give me a paintbrush, I'm going to give you a great stick figure. You give Leonardo da Vinci a paintbrush, you're going to get a masterpiece. You all have been using the same tool that I've been using for the most part, ChatGPT. How different are my prompts to what you've been thinking about? That's because I am using it strategically rather than tactically. So step one is, can we, at least at a leadership level, can we create some foundational competence on how to use this strategically in the 20% that drives the 80%. You're going to go through the learning curve. I want to take you through the learning curve on something that's going to make a big financial impact. I had one guy, very successful business, flipping houses. He sent me his strategic plan. I gave him a prompt to use. This is in the book, by the way, on how he could turn AI into an aggressive, growth-minded board member whose job was to bulletproof his plan. And it came back and it said, while the plan has the sufficiency to achieve your results, it's actually going to violate the personal lifestyle that you're looking for over time. Instead of scaling your house flipping business, I suggest that you stop flipping houses altogether and acquire multifamily real estate and the service-based businesses that surround it. With that thinking, instead of getting another house under contract in the next month, it would net him $10,000. He got a building under contract that netted him $1 million instantly because he bought it at such a steep discount. That's a good prompt. $1 million prompt. What have you learned today? Put your answers in the chat box. A lot. How many of you feel like the fire hose just came at you? How many are you going to rewatch this? Yeah. I'll make it real simple. I shared a lot of stories. I talk pretty fast. What's the one thing I want you to do following this? That's right, Diana. Sticky note party. Sticky note party. And if you want a separate sticky note that says context, role, interview, task, once a day, every day, just practice. Step one is, can I identify a use case? If you ask the question, you will. Step two is, can you write a good prompt? Take time. Really think about it. Step three is, can you learn how to stay in the driver's seat as the thought leader? Because AI might go in directions you don't want it to go. It might give you something that sounds good, but you got to fact check it. Like learning how to be the thought leader and lead the technology, that's all of it. What other questions you got? Oh, come on.
One question here. Regarding these parts, context, role, interview, are these like keywords that ChatGPT recognizes as what you want to tell it? Like,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. And I will, like, I'll show you right now. Here's what I will literally do. Then I go in.
That's how you write it in. Okay. Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah. I was just wondering if are there other keywords that you would recommend that ChatGPT recognizes? These are the
Doesn't
main
matter.
ones.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Now you're going into the 80% that only drives the 20%.
Sure.
20% is follow that framework. And literally, I give it headers because the prompts I write tend to be longer. If you write it as a as a long paragraph, it doesn't perform the same way as if you give it section headers and paragraph it out.
Makes sense. Okay, good.
Great question. Use my ChatGPT to help rehearse communications with key people in my business. I love that, Paul. Great job. Do you guys get to give you feedback? That would be the next level. Have it rehearse, but then have it give you feedback on what it liked, what it didn't like, and the top changes you can make. What's the best way to consistently use an application of AI tools across large teams? What I just said, Sam. Once a day, every day, next 30 days, start doing it. Now, when you're in a team session, like when we'll do workshops for executive teams to get them started. We'll give them the foundational training like this for their team, but then it's about understanding what's your rhythm going to be. Do you have an existing team meeting with this cohort? And can you add this to the agenda where every week they just have to show up and share their biggest win with AI and the top place they need help with AI? Because I also want to normalize failure. A lot of companies have not created psychological safety around failing. We're in the Wild West, folks. There's going to be a lot of failure happening. I want to make failure seem safe. And I want people to be able to say, hey, I failed doing this. And somebody's going to go, well, have you tried this? Or I failed doing this, but here's what I learned, and sharing that with one another. Like, how do we centralize our knowledge within our teams? Just doing that, massively powerful. Wanted to show you something if we have time. And Chuck, you tell me when I need to flip it back to you.
Yeah, just maybe 2 minutes before the top of the hour is fine.
Beautiful. Okay, I'm just going to show you this. I mentioned the maturity matrix earlier. I want to show you this to give you context of what the journey will look like. So level 1 is all about foundational competence. You having a strong foundation with your leaders ready to scale. So that means you've got the buy-in across the leadership. They are proficient at prompting. You have figured out your policies and you know how to identify high value use cases. You have to check all those boxes to say we're at level 1. Level 2 is where we're going for early adoption. You've got an organized roadmap and you are piloting AI adoption with sponsors. So clear plan on how you're going to drive this. You are able to identify, prioritize, and execute initial pilots and get wins. The policies are in place and you are starting to actually look at how you're going to invest in training the people and having data readiness. Data is no longer something you happen to collect. It becomes the nucleus of the company. That's a different way of looking at it. Once you check those boxes, then you can start to strategically expand the use of AI across your company and key functional areas. So you're weaving it into your strategic planning, your execution, your people, your finance processes. Half of your organization is proficient at using this. At a functional level or a divisional level, they are now empowered to start driving this, identifying their own use cases and prioritizing, executing, and getting wins. You're working cross-functionally to actually start to work together. Data is now a core part of the organization. Level 4 is when you are harnessing it across the company, you are optimizing the existing state. And some companies, they may just be there. There are some companies that will then go for level 5, which is when you're going for full-blown transformation. You are looking at your org structure, job descriptions, your product and service offering. Like, this is what's the business that'll put us out of business, and how do we build it first? I want you to view this like dominoes. You don't get to do domino 2 until you've knocked down domino 1. You don't get to do domino 3 until you've knocked down domino 2. My guess is most of you are still working toward level 1. Awesome. You're like most people. Now the question is, how can you prioritize making this real this year? I'm telling you, you could probably be here in the next 90 days. So by end of Q1-ish, you could be there if you make it a priority and you line things up. Is that helpful? And that hopefully hit the earlier question on, is there a strategic approach to doing this? There it was.
Excited to have George had a question real quick. Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, which main players? Here's my answer. All the LLMs, large language models, are the same, and they're all different. What matters for you in your type of business is privacy and security. So we just narrowed it down to 3: ChatGPT, Copilot, and Claude. ChatGPT I have found to be the best all-around Swiss Army knife. I also like that they can build custom GPTs, which is like a mini app that can help with operational efficiency. Copilot is a Microsoft product. If you're a Microsoft shop, use Copilot. It's ChatGPT with a Microsoft wrapper. Microsoft is also going to be doing a lot around AI agents, which are AI models that can take actions on your behalf that they'll be pushing out to you, and it'll integrate with the Microsoft suite. That's very powerful. Claude is great for writing, coding, and strategic thinking, but I don't know many businesses that are using that as their backbone yet.
Geoff, thank you so much. And all members and all of our guests, if you would please come off of mute if you're on camera, and let's give Geoff a round of applause.